What if I told you that nothing instinctively has the power to make you mad? Or what if I told you that nothing truly has the power to make you upset? You would probably look at me like I'm crazy, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic, someone flips you off, cuts you off, flips you off again. It rains outside, you're in traffic and you're late for work, mad, upset, right? It just seems natural. It seems like that's what anybody would do. However, the more that I've started looking at it and paying attention to it and kind of playing around with it, experimenting with it, and realizing that it's truly not the situation itself that made you that way, that made you feel that way. You didn't have the power, you gave it that power. It's your reaction to it, it's how you looked at it, it's what you chose to look at. That truly, determines how you feel. Because let's say, for example, it's raining outside, right? For raining, when it rains, one person may look and be like, fuck, it's raining outside. It's going to be dark, it's gloomy, it's depressing, it's down, it's just, ugh, hate the rain. While another person may get energized when it starts raining. They may go outside, play in the rain, start swinging around the poles, playing in the dirt, the mud. Maybe it's relaxing, it's calming. They can't wait to cozy up and read a book or go to sleep and listen to the rain. Or maybe it's just comforting for them. Two very different reactions, two very different experiences, but yet the exact same thing. The exact same experience, which is rain. So it's really just what you focus on. And that's not to say that, you need to do a complete 180 and you need to love the rain, completely, but just more of a sense of being able to control or navigate, your emotional state with it, your energy. Your energy is important. And we go throughout our day, and a lot of these small things will happen and accumulate, and they're just sucking away your energy. There's things that are going to give you energy, that are going to energize you, make you happy, make you feel, fulfilled. And then there's other things that'll pull away from you, that'll drain you, that feel deconstructing. We have these small things throughout the day, traffic, someone says something to you, and we react to it. We're very reactive people, or we've come to be very reactive people. We've come to say that we're very emotional beings when, you know, we not necessarily. We've been conditioned, we've been taught and raised to be emotional beings in a sense of allowing emotions to control you and pull you, every other way, and reacting to those emotions so quickly and reacting to everything else and allowing whatever emotion that initially comes up to dominate you and not think that that emotion maybe can change. That's just what we've come to be accustomed to. But you can change that though. Um, and now when it comes into terms of how exactly you shift it, so like first, obviously awareness is, the number one thing is just being aware of it. Being able to, when a situation shows up, you may feel a certain way and noticing what you're feeling. And then, seeing that situation, that type of situation keep showing up and you have a certain reaction to it and why you have that reaction to it. There's a reason you're reacting to something. It's not just the situation on its own. It's, your reaction, how you feel about it. And that's not necessarily going all the way back to traumas and everything, just literal in the sense of something happened and this was my reaction to it. I got mad, because of this. And then noticing that whenever we get mad, whenever we get upset, frustrated, whatever the deconstructive, emotions are, it's because of what you were looking at. And I'm assuming what you were looking at then was something that was negative. We don't look at a positive outcome from a situation, a positive point of view, and get frustrated and get upset. There was something negative that we were looking at. A negative idea, a negative thought, feeling about it that made us, all of a sudden feel aggravated or upset or frustrated. And we need to realize, or it's important to realize, that nothing is innately just negative and nothing is innately just positive. It just is. And then at that point, you can choose what you want to focus on. I realized that a big pushback that I was getting in the beginning, just from the people around me, as of I was very much in this state of positive, everything is positive, and then people are taking it as of like toxic positivity. You're too positive, which is it's funny. But saying like you're too positive, everything isn't positive. Some things are just bad. Some things are just negative, and that just is what it is. There's positive things and there's negative things. When something negative happens, I feel negatively, and that's just what it is. And that's what we're humans, so we have to have negative things and positive things. However, that is not the case. Yes, everything isn't all positive. But then obviously in the same way, everything isn't all negative. So whenever there's a situation that feels negative, you can look at whatever aspect of it that you want to look at. You can look at it from whatever point of view that you want to look at. You can keep it as a negative thing, yes, or you can go around the corner, look at it a little differently, and choose something positive. And then all of a sudden, why would you be mad about it? Why would you be upset? Why would you be aggravated? And then all of a sudden, you're not collecting that stress from it. It's not triggering you. It no longer has that power. For example, something that I started doing literally today actually is traffic. That's such a big one, right? I feel like road rage is huge. Either you are that person or you know somebody. And when it comes to road rage, maybe like I said, somebody flips you off and then cuts you off and flips you off again. Then at that point, it's like initially you'd be like, all right, well, that would make you mad, right? That would make anybody mad. You'd be like, damn, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? It feels like aggression. Like they did that on purpose, like it's an attack onto you. So you start feeling, defensive. You want to attack. It's aggression. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? It's aggravating. It's annoying. That's the negative side. That's the negative point of views that you can look from. But now I've chose to look at it from a place of love. From everything in my life now, I want that to be my homeostasis, my home, where I look at things. My base is from love. Everything comes from a place of love. Everything is experienced through a place of love. So when I look at that person and see them flip me off and cut me off and flip me off, it's no longer, this person that's trying to attack me. Instead, it's a kid. It's a child. It's literally a child that didn't know any better. A child that, was just being a child, going off of their level of awareness, going off of their level of, honestly, yeah, that awareness, they just didn't know. They didn't know any better. So at that point, when I see it, it's just silly. Silly, what are you doing? Silly? That's literally what I say now. Silly. Well, laugh and I move on, because that's what it was. It was silly. They didn't know any better. When you have one of your children, literally, if it's one of your children, or you're a teacher or a counselor and you see one of your children and they're doing, something that was stupid, something that didn't really make sense, it's just, what are you doing? Johnny, what are you doing? Get over here. Silly, just doing stuff. And that's how I see it now, when they go ahead and if they cut me off. And it's not, no matter what, they weren't aware, That's not to say in a way justifying what they're doing, that they can say, oh, it's fine, I just wasn't aware. Stop, Luna. Not to say that, it's justifying, but again, that's for my purpose of it, of, protecting and gatekeeping my energy, projecting my energy how I want to project it. So instead, it's not whether or not it was intentional for them, because regardless, it still comes from awareness. If it wasn't intentional and it was a complete accident, then that's pretty straightforward. They weren't aware. cat owner. It's a full-time job. Anyway, so like I was saying, if they it was completely unintentional, then obviously that's the most straightforward way of not being aware. Now, on the other hand, let's say that it was intentional and they did do it on purpose. Again, that still comes from them not being aware. Them not being aware how their actions fully affect other people. Yep, say hi. Them not being aware of the fact that the world doesn't revolve, solely around them. Them not being aware that I am a part of them and they are a part of me, that we all come from the same thing, that we're not so different as they see it. Them not being aware that it isn't a competition. Maybe they did it intentionally because they're mad, they're upset about something else that happened in their life and they wanted to try to take it out in that moment, a feeling of power. So they're not aware that they don't need to express it that way. They're not aware that they didn't need to accept that aggressiveness, whatever that pain was, whatever it was that happened to them, and now they feel the need to act out, again, like a child acting out. They're just not aware. And now when I look at it that way and I have that understanding of it, then it still just comes from a place of love. It's silly. You're silly, but you'll learn. You'll figure it out. I have faith that you'll figure it out in the future, whatever that means. However that looks like, you'll figure it out and you'll learn. Just silly. Just be safe, bro. And that's it. And it's, of course, a muscle. It may not be as easy. I may still have that initial reaction. You can stop yourself, Emotions, they come to us like clouds. So we may not initially control, what flows in, but when it flows in, you can look at it and assess it briefly and choose how you want to do that. If you want to pull the emotion and bring it down and focus on that, or you want to spin it around, look at the positive and accept that and then move on. You can still have those choices. And with it being a muscle, something that you practice over time, something that gets stronger, then eventually you get to the point where the majority of your initial reactions is, the positive, finding the positive, because your brain, how amazing and powerful it is it'll find whatever it is that you're looking for, whatever it is that, you're scanning, you're searching for, your brain will find it. It's like when you get a new car, you got that brand new Toyota, and then all of a sudden, nothing but Toyotas on the road. You see them everywhere. It's not that the whole world, like literally physically shifted and all the cars changed into Toyotas. It's your world shifted, your brain, your awareness all of a sudden has a relationship with Toyota. You see it every day. You connected to it. You've gotten a relationship with Toyotas because it's your car. It feels different for you. So now your brain is like, Toyotas. Yeah, we like Toyotas. We know Toyotas. We have Toyotas. We have a relationship with Toyotas. So it searches and it finds it unconsciously. It's like all of a sudden they're everywhere because you have that awareness for it. So the same way with, the positive of a situation and the negative of a situation, the constructive and the deconstructive, the more that you, aim your awareness towards it, the more that your brain instinctively finds it and brings it up, and the more you're able to address these situations more constructively. We react to all of these small things throughout the day, traffic, what somebody said to you, you forgot this, you're late here, and the weather changes, and your plans don't go as planned. And we react how we react. We focus on what we focus on. And each little moment, it's stress, stress from this, and then this adds on a little bit, and this adds on a little bit, and this adds on a little bit, and then that's why we get home, and it's finally like, ugh. You sit in your chair, you just gotta breathe. You gotta decompress. You need to smoke. You need to drink. You need to eat a bunch of food. You need to do whatever it is that you feel like you need to do. And again, we're we're in this human body, right now. We're spiritual beings, but we're in a human body. We're having a human experience. So I fully still encourage the balance of having your human experience, fulfilling that, because that's why you're here. You shouldn't completely abandon that, but again, it's not the feeling of you needed to. I needed to do this, I needed to do that. It's a crutch. I actually, before in the past, had like a smoking addiction where I had to come home and smoke, and I would smoke a whole thing, maybe one and a half, of weed, blunts, L, joint, whatever, weed, because it was a crutch. And I don't feel like weed was the problem. I don't have any problem against that. It was my use of needing it, coming home and having that feeling of I needed to relieve that stress. So instead is realizing that it's not really innately how do I reduce stress, it's how do I avoid it, how do I avoid some of it. Not perfect, again, not 100%, but progress, some of it, avoiding more of it, gaining less of it, being more aware of it. Because when you really realize that love is the natural state of life, the natural state of your being, that's when your brain starts looking for it, and it affirms it, and more of it comes, and it affirms it more, and the more of it comes, and then the universe is like, damn, this guy gets it. This guy's feeling it. I'm feeling him. He's aware of it, and it's the universe starts to realize that you're expecting, that you're not even asking, you're just accepting. So it gives, because it sees that you're accepting. You have whatever it is in your mind that you're looking for, that you want. And this is another topic, I guess, that I'll dig into a little bit more, but it just bridges off of what comes next. One of the benefits, the big benefits of allowing yourself to remain in this place. But obviously the biggest thing is just less stress, not being so reactive to everything, to having some of that control back, because that's what we want. Most of the time, I'm assuming what we want in life, whether it's, from power, from money, from your influence, from your freedom or whatever, it's power, a sense of power, some sense of control in this life. And that's where it starts, not going for external things. It starts internally, of what you allow to control you. You have that choice, you have that possibility, you have that freedom. So just be aware of it. When something happens, you have a choice. Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.